call this finance committee meeting to order. It's going to be late, a little late. So, start with Don. First item is assignment of request for council action. 1410 for the finance committee, 1410 budget amendments, 111, payment over $3,000 from Denver Hospital, 14112, purchase of three 2014 Ford Police Interceptors for the police, 14113 contract for priority dispatch for police, 14114 contract for PROQA priority dispatch interface for police, 14115 2013 financial audit contract modification for Ray Associates, 14116 RFPs case management software for municipal court, 14117 economic development TREX transfer form, 14118 collective bargaining unit patrol sergeants, 14119 pay scale and healthcare adjustment non-union, 14120 declaration of necessity for tax levy renew, 14121 qualification statement professional design services municipal courthouse. For special legislation committee, 14122 adopt point of sale inspection legislation. Health safety and sanitation committee, 14109 utility rate review commission recommendations sanitation rates, and 14123 police department reorganization. That's it. 14097 PY, is it supposed to be FY?
No, they changed it to a partnership.
Oh. Community Housing Impact and Preservation Program, CHIP, and that is Sandy. No.
Yeah, I can take this one.
Jonathan.
Yeah, so this is for the, basically nicknamed the CHIP program that we've participated in the past, just on our own. As part of being able to access more dollars to the state through CDBG, we're working to have an agreement between the City of Brunswick, City of Medina, and City of Wadsworth to allow for $50,000 extra in money per community, so that'd be $400,000 to each community for a total of $1.2 million. And this project is so that we can have this good program that's worked well for all the cities and be able to have more money. And what this will set up is an agreement between the three communities, with an agreement with contract with CT Consultant to be the project manager. The City of Medina will be the program manager, managing the dollars as they flow and everything, and working with CT Consultants to be with the individual project management. And in your RCAs, it kind of describes the different types of projects that would be as part of these, that would be allocated dollars and numbers for individual types of projects through this program. Additionally, there's an emergency clause requested because it needs to be submitted to the state on June 6th. So that's it in a nutshell.
And Mr. Huber, you're all right? You went through the agreement, and as much protection as we can obtain, we have received?
I believe so. I have been through the agreement. The other two law directors.
And so we're going to coordinate it for this fiscal year only, which could bleed over to 2015 as it always does, I guess.
Well, it's an application this year for the coming fiscal year.
Right.
So we would apply, and I think we would know whether or not we get it in the fourth quarter or end of third quarter of 14 to be allocated, I think, through the rest of the year and into 15.
Questions?
I do have one technical question here. On page 8 of the agreement, talks about declining fully forgiven 2-year loan. I'm not quite sure I understand what that means. Could Greg or John explain that? Or Jonathan?
Question number 8.
It's on page number 8.
Is this the
Under
agreement?
rental occupied home repair will be required that the landlord contribute 50% of the construction contract, including any change orders towards the project, and the remaining 50% will be provided as a declining fully forgiven 2-year loan.
So this would be the
I see
agreement.
that phrase, declining fully forgiven, a couple of times throughout
It
this
says CT
document.
Consultants.
Well, declining fully forgiven would mean that the total value divided by the years, so at the end of the time period is 0 left.
As long as they're paying it back.
Well, fully forgiven, I would guess would mean that they would forgive
As long
the
as they
amount
stay
of
in the
debt.
residency, I believe.
Okay.
And the reason they used that 2-year window was because of the grant period, and, you know, to try to have these things going out longer than the grant for like 5 years or 7 years gets unmanageable after a while.
Okay.
So we thought there should be an end date.
Move
Thank
to
you.
approve
Second.
with the emergency clause.
Second with the emergency clause.
Any other questions regarding the request? All in favor with the emergency clause?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3, we have 14109, utility rate review recommendation with the water rates. Either Nino or Mark, you came to your committee.
I can start, unless Nino would like to, since it's his RC.
It is, I put the request in, I mean, I think we've had these discussions for the last year, and given the recent notification, well, we had prior notification from Avon, it was recommended to the review that the rate decreased on our end to 5%. And that sounds like it would be July 1st, in another month or so. We're expecting another increase from Avon commencing January of 2015. That we already have notice of as well.
And you're also anticipating another one next July.
That's my understanding, 3 to 4%. That we've not received a notification for that to date.
And it came through our committee, we had a lengthy discussion on it. You know, as we looked at these rate increases, we were trying to stay at 3% each year, just to try to keep up with it. Just like I said in Water and Utilities meeting, we keep these budgets as slim as possible. One of the other factors involved here is the recoding of the Spieth Road storage tanks, which are 12-year-old tanks that already need to be recoded, which I'm a little baffled myself, but that dollar amount two's range approximately $400,000 to $500,000, which we don't have, and that's I think another reason for this increase so suddenly is because that's a pending improvement that I don't know if it's finalized yet, but it's coming here in the near future, and the 5% is warranted on top of where we're already at with the increases from Avon Lake, but this is another large project that the water accounts can't sustain. Came through our committee, like I said, we had lengthy discussion. I myself wasn't real excited about the start date of July 1st. It did pass through committee, as you see in front of you with the start date of July 1st, 2014 with the 2-1 approval. I myself, since I'm talking about it now, I would like to give our customers a little bit of time. Now, I during committee wanted to see, we talked about blasting it out via Facebook, websites, you know, any avenue we can, but I wanted to try to get in the water bills too, because you know, a lot of other utilities provide some kind of notice, which we're kind of in a pinch here where we talked about it, that might not be possible, because I think if we did it in the water bill, you know, once it goes through finance, once it goes through council, then we, you know, then it's official. I wouldn't be able to get out until I think September, maybe.
Right.
September's water bill, and that's
And we talked,
getting us further back, but we're losing, without the increase, about $15,000 a month. I'd be myself satisfied maybe a start date of August 1st. That way we know we've tried, even though it's not in the water bill, we've tried to get it out to the general public. But in past increases, we've provided, especially the business community, a sufficient notice so they can plan ahead for their next fiscal year. But in this situation, it seems that we're not going to be able to do that. But still, I'm not real excited about the July 1st start date, but I'd like to.
and I spoke with you about the next increase occurring in January of 2015, and I
Right,
think
and that's another issue.
you want to start that, or get the utility rate review committee together, and maybe in June,
Right.
have the answer, so before we go on break, we could vote that through council, which would mean that by the second meeting in June, you'd have a recommendation of finance, and then the first meeting in July, we could pass it through council.
Right.
So at least for the August, September, October, November, December water bills, they could have an alert of what that rate increase would be for July, or January 15th, or January 1st of 15.
Right.
I think that would probably be important, because we know what's going to occur.
Yeah.
We just don't know exactly the amount or the rate.
Right, and again, I believe when I started the water meeting, I did bring up that they probably might have to meet in the near future because of an additional increase. But like I said at our water meeting, our hands are tied. Large percentage just goes to Avon Lake to pay for the water that they supply us. So on our end, there's limited areas we can do to tighten up, and I think we've done a good job at that. But it's just an unfortunate situation with the rate increase that they're providing, or giving us, and the Spieth Road tank. We're just in a rock and a hard place.
Now, as we discussed in the meeting, or was discussed in prior meetings, the rate increase from Avon Lake, I think over the period of time, I don't have it in front of me, was somewhere between 22% to 24% over the 2007 to 2014 year. And we have only increased, I think, around 12%, half that amount. Now, we did have a balance a little bit, but we haven't paid back the Progress Drive water tank. And if need be, I think you can borrow a little bit from the capital fund to cover the Spieth Road tank, whatever that cost would be, but you have to pay that back.
Right.
Because that's gonna be a maintenance issue, an
And
obligation.
if you recall, we're already struggling to pay back the Progressive
Yes.
tank improvement we did. So it's,
So we have to figure the way out and figure what the cost, what the increases in that account to cover that.
right. And Keith's averages he provided was Avon Lake's increases through 2011 to 14 averaged about 6.8% on an average, and we were still, and again, this is 2007 to 14, but we averaged just a little over 3%.
Right.
So we're playing catch-up. and
Well, the other
we're
issue
not
is
getting
you may have
ahead.
to revisit again on the water rate increases, if it's across the board increase in January, or do you want to have it staggered through the different rate structures
Right.
for different users for different percentage increases, but that's another question.
And I agree with Mark on the notification. I do think it's important for the public to have proper notification. But on the other hand, when we're talking about, still not paying back the Progressive Drive tank yet, we're struggling to do that. Now we're going to be coming up with another cost, even though a month is only going to save us, or not save us, bring in revenue-wise another $15,000. I agree with John that for the January increase, we're going to have plenty of time to notify all entities, but I still would vote to pass the July 1st.
Well, I guess that's the first question we need to have all on the same page, is that when would you want that to go into effect? Because if you want it to go into effect July 1st, there has to be a motion made on council floor to add it to the agenda in order to pass it. So you're for August 1st, earlier.
Just a little more time, just to, because I know that, to me, I think, we talked about residential increase, it's minor, but when you get into the business realm, they're halfway decent numbers for their budgeting process, so.
Understood.
I think we should follow the process and give the public the full notification.
So August 1st. You're July, I'm August.
August.
Well,
Boy, it seems like I'm kind of outnumbered, huh?
well, Jim's not here yet. We can't answer that. Well, okay, we'll do that, but I think it's imperative that you look at the January one, because we don't want to be caught in the same situation. And we know, and then even when you talk about January, I think you have to work out the numbers, because there might be one in July again.
Right.
Sir,
That's
before you
gonna
get too far, we can't even do August. If you pass it here, then we're gonna go to the second Monday in June, then you got 30 days beyond that. You're the second Monday of July, give or take a few days. the dates make that exactly right. So by then, the August bills are out, so now you're looking at September.
No,
I'm okay with, I just can't, I'm sorry, I thought you were asking a different question. I can do the August bills, I can't do, there was talk before about putting notice in the bill prior.
right.
If we're going to August, I still can't do this with the timeline you're talking about unless you put it on the agenda tonight.
I understand.
Because if you.
That's the
pass
same
it-
thing.
Yes.
That's the same thing I'm saying, is they're gonna get the notice the same time their bill goes up, saying your bill's going up.
Right, you're talking two different things.
Yeah,
He's
we
talking
bypass the
notice.
notice because
Okay.
we're
He
not
says it's
able to
okay with
meet
not
it,
giving the notice in
but
the
it just
bill.
gives us an
Okay.
additional time to, all the
Take
avenues.
public
Right.
comment. things.
No, we can do, as you said, the website, Twitter,
Right.
Facebook.
But not the
a
notice.
press release, we'll put it on the cable channels, we'll put out as many ways as we
Right.
can. It just, they won't get the notice in
You-
time. I just want to make sure.
The notice isn't gonna go in the bill.
Okay.
Does everybody understand that? But you're right, they give them a little bit more time to at least adjust to it. Now, the businesses will be maybe a little upset, but they'll still get a little bit of time to prepare for it. Because the other thing, you'll be talking right away, and I think we gotta make it clear that there's gonna be another rate increase coming January 1st, 2015. So everybody should be aware of that.
I put in what, this is the other thing I want to point out, I put in what was attached to this. We had previously passed 3% annual rate increases, so when I wrote this up to put in an increase in this one, and then continue the 3%.
Well, it might be more than 3% in January, that's the question we're asking, is there'll be, it's somewhere between 3 and a maximum, I think, with the rate increase of Avon Lake, 7.5, because if you add 4.5 or whatever it is to the 3, but it probably won't be as high as 7.5. I don't think that probably would be appropriate, but utility rate, looking at with the numbers to see how much revenue generation is going to occur, it's gonna be somewhere probably around 5 again, at that point, and then see how it stabilizes, if it stabilizes, and if the use of the commercial users increase or doesn't increase.
And those were other factors that were involved. I don't know if Keith wants to chime in on that. We did the 3% increase that started in January, but even from the increases last year, because of the diminished use of water, it was really a break even. We really didn't gain much at all.
Right.
And
But I would also look at like you did, I think, the previous time, the different rate structures, not just a across-the-board increase, but maybe look at again, well, maybe, certain people should get bigger increases, or there should be a modification in the minimum usage. I mean, that's the way we used to do it. I think
Right.
it was was it 100, went to 200,
right.
or something like that.
The big change when we did the reallocation was that instead of getting 200 cubic feet per month with your minimum bill, you went down to getting 100 cubic feet with your
Right.
minimum bill. But then, kind of the trade-off to that was the minimum bill did not increase. With that one, or the increase at the beginning of 13, so the minimum bill has only increased once.
Mhm.
That was January,
Mhm.
since 2009.
Right.
It was held, but the quantity you got with it was reduced, and then it was also tapered out to what we did on the high end.
So, since we're getting into a time where the rates are gonna be getting higher, then I think we have to revisit that once again, because there are gonna be additional rate increases in the near future, depending on what Avon Lake does. So, that's a concern.
So is my motion going to be to pass Mr. McCauley's request, RCA 14109, the starting date amended to August 1st?
Yes.
Second.
Do you know anything else?
I do not. That's your question.
Anything else here?
Keith, how many minimum water users, residential water users are there?
I answered that in one of these emails. I think it was,
Are you saying like the 100 cubic feet minimum?
Right.
504, when we looked at it. For the study we did in, I want to say 11. And that, it varies, obviously, but that was how many we had at that time.
So that's most likely the older people, single people, or
Vacant houses.
vacant houses?
Vacant houses make up some of them, and we have a surprising number that come in at 0. Remember too, though, that there's no rounding on these bills. You're billed for 100 cubic feet.
Yeah, no matter
So
what, right?
you don't get, if you don't use enough to trip that up to the next reading on the meter, you just don't get billed. Same with, since the minimum bill covers up to 100, if you use 150 a month, your bill will alternate between 1 and 2 because of where it comes out. We don't bill partial units.
So when we were talking about this last time, this rate increase on the minimal water user was it 53 cents or
Well, it went up to like 62 cents.
58 cents, I think?
Well, it was 58 that night, went up to 62 because the lowest number was off a little bit.
Okay. Just one thing I think is important to keep in mind, for me anyway, and I'm sure some of you guys, is you were mentioning, if you're a senior and you're a resident, you own your home, maybe you're one person, maybe you're two. 60 cents is not a substantial increase. We didn't raise the minimum rate last time. But if you look at the cumulative effect of rate increases, it probably does have an impact on some people. I know my gas bill, I think, went up about 35% this year. And when we talked about it, we said, well, we want to be fair. It's not fair to not raise the rate because we're raising other people. But I think it's important to keep in mind two things. One, we have no control over, and when we do, we have a great sanitation system, great sanitation department. However, if you are that single person in a household, you might put out 1 can of trash a week. And if you put out 5 cans, you're actually adding more to the waste stream, so you are adding to the cost of the system. The one we don't control is the sanitary sewer. The sanitary sewer bill, I do believe, is a fixed rate per household.
From the county.
From the county. So if you're a single person in a household, you're gonna, I think it's $57 a quarter. You're gonna pay $57 a quarter if you're one person with one toilet. If you've got 6 people in the house, you're gonna pay $57 a quarter likewise. So I think when we look at fairness, I think it's important to look at each thing that impacts those people, they could be elderly, they could not be, they could be the single person living in a house. That has very less impact on the system, but is in effect carrying, with what they're putting into the system, they are helping to carry that system, really supplementing the system. So in this case, it does make sense, it's 62 cents. But I think it's important just to look at all the things that have an impact on those people that are, maybe they're, half of those people. Keith said some of those could be empty houses, maybe they're 200 people, but if you're one of those 200 people and you're the person taking the 1 trash can out, and you're the person paying $57 a quarter to the county, and you're the person with the water rate increase, and you're on fixed income, may have an impact.
That's right. Anything else? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item is number 4, 14-110, budget amendments. We have, the first one, I think is this Lake Road Reconstruction 2014-024, Phase 2. Rich, Keith,
We put this in, it's for that project.
any questions on that one?
Would approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 214-015, reduce the carry forward for the 513 and 514 accounts, which is water. Now, the first question I had, I didn't even know they had carry forward. I thought we eliminated carry forward in those 2 accounts, but maybe not.
This came out of the budget process. It was to eliminate the carry forward in
Right.
the 2 cash control funds.
Oh, the cash control case. Is there, so eliminates it, I can't even read it, so highlighted there, but we can't see it. 31,104.38. And the 5, what is that, the 513, and then it's,
Sanitation, there's the 16,000 is put back because otherwise we can't pay the postage.
right. So it's a total reduction, the net reductions in the 514, and it's 18,678.77, and 31,104.38 in the 513.
Right.
Anybody have any questions?
Would approve.
Second.
Nino, you didn't have these planned for anything, or you wouldn't have it? I guess it would just be your department.
We covered that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item we have is number 8455. This is night vision equipment for the police department. Who's doing that? Sorry?
Marco.
Sorry?
These allow us to see Yeah, at night.
Very good.
When someone's running from us or takes off from us, we can see out and can see hot spots where they're at. It helps a lot too.
Now, is this the right number? Because it was 8. Now it's, I mean, it's 10 here, 10,000. Is it supposed to, it should be 8,000? I mean, do we change that to
I think the
next?
quote is actually 8,100, but
Oh,
they put not to exceed 10 because inevitably there's shipping costs or some little adjustment that's made and then causes us to come back through this process a second time.
Okay, we just approved a vendor.
Yes, sir.
No, we did both.
We did.
We approved it subject to this,
Oh.
but the money has to be appropriate.
But was it the same number? I guess I just want to make,
It doesn't, the appropriation, if it's not
Okay.
spent,
Right, it's going to kick back in. For the rest of council, we talked about this at Board of Control. This 155 fund is either Drug Enforcement Trust or Law Enforcement Trust. I can't keep the two separate, but they're specifically for police specialized equipment, can't be used for anything about this. So rather than take it out of the police budget that can be used for more generalized things, I suggested to the chief we pull it out of here. That comes from fines and forfeitures and things like that.
I think it's an important tool for the police department, especially since, we eliminated the K-9 division, so I think it is going to benefit the community as well as you being able to do your job.
questions?
Make a motion to approve?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item number 5, 14-111, payment over $3,000 to Medina Hospital Wellness.
this is another of these, the wellness screens are underway, so we need it.
An emergency clause is requested.
We can pay them.
Make a motion to pass with emergency clause?
Second with emergency clause.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item number 6, 14-112, it's a purchase of 3 2014 Ford Explorer Police Interceptors. I believe that everybody received an email. I had a lot of discussion. I emailed the chief last week, and I forwarded on all the, had Kathy forward on all the correspondence, to everybody with all the discussion. I think the biggest, what I wasn't aware of, that occurred in 2010, we authorized the purchase of 4, I believe it was, old Crown Vics. And at that time, the chief didn't purchase any of those. So they were never purchased, even though we authorized 4. So the sheet you see is the question that I was focusing on is the 2014 vehicles that were purchased. We just had 3 of them delivered. My only concern was the timing of the delivery. I mean, I'm a little concerned that we don't want to get these vehicles too soon because we have to be replaced at the same time. And the goal is, I think when the mayor was chief, we did 3 a year. That was kind of a program that was established. So I'm just a little concerned that we don't have 6. If we do buy these 6 that come in 2014, even though some were ordered in 2013 and delivered in 14, that we don't run into a situation where we have to replace 5 or 6 vehicles in 1 year, because we don't want to do that. I don't, because it's a lot of money.
Are these ready to be delivered?
No, we didn't even order these yet.
Okay, so I mean, how long would it be if we approved tonight, how long before they'd come?
Depends.
They don't start the production. It's going to be, they're giving us 14 pricing on the 2015 models because the 14s are all gone. The build-out's already occurred. So they don't start the production until September. And then it depends on where you are in the pile as to when your vehicles come.
So we
at
would
the-
get them closer to 2015?
Yeah, at the earliest, it'd be very late in 14, more likely January, February.
That's what
15.
happened this year.
Yes.
We received them in January and February.
Kind of puts us a year.
Yes.
Kind of puts us a year.
Yeah, just as long as we keep that program of replacing those vehicles. As you can see, while I was out there this weekend, there's 14 vehicles out there, but there's, I think, 17 total vehicles.
Sergeant Mark's got that number.
Currently, there's 19 total, but 4 are going. 2 are being sold at auction with major mechanical issues. 1 was flooded 2 weeks ago when we had all the rain. And
Is that covered by insurance then? Do we get our?
Total.
it
It's
is,
totaled, right?
It is gonna be a total loss. We don't know how much we're
The
getting
value,
yet
right.
for that. That, unfortunately, that was our best Crown Victoria that we had in the fleet. And so after those 4 are gone, we're down to 15, and I would anticipate when these 3 came, that we would get rid of another 2 or 3 at that point. All the Crown Victorias are over 100,000 miles. They're nickel and diming us to death as far as maintenance goes on those.
And of those 15, how many are on the front line?
9 are on the front
So-
line.
So what we've done here differently than when I was there is, rather than just take them all to auction and get $50 or $100, we found out that during parades and special events, when the specials are out, they don't need all the equipment, the laptops and shotguns and rifles and everything else, but they need a car so that the lights can go and they can stop traffic. So we've reserved some of those older ones for that, for the school resource officers. So we're hanging on to those for those purposes. But the mainline, frontline cars for the day-to-day activity is nine vehicles, which in my mind is reasonable for the number of officers that we have. Because we don't want to run cars 24/7, just like anything. It's better to give them a shift or 2 downtime, or you slowly run them out.
And the money's available to carry forward to cover these, the cost of these cars. But like I said, my biggest concern was getting too many cars too close together, but it doesn't seem like that.
Because we went through this about the same time last year.
Yeah, and then they were ordering it,
By the time they got ordered.
right.
Yeah, They
So
were ordered
we got
in fall, and
some-
we got them just on the road a week or so ago.
It's usually 4 to 6 months.
Mhm.
So you-
I think we're safe on having too many at the same time.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was my only concern, because then you gotta look 3 years from now. Then that's about 3 years, 3 to 4 years with the miles they put on them, the frontline
Yeah,
vehicles.
generally at least 4 we get, yeah. But I mean, every once in a while, I mean, the chief, I know, brought up in that email, we had the 2 vehicles put out of service with 1 crash with a felon. And then now this water thing, you have things like that come along, and you just can't control some of these things. We do the best we can.
Move to approve?
Second.
Any further discussion or comment? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 14-113, contract with Emergitech Priority Dispatch for Police. Sergeant?
The Emergitech one is that the $7,000 one?
44,000. Wait, is that
44,000.
right? Yeah, that's
Okay, the
44,000.
44,000 is for the software and the training from Priority Dispatch. It's very similar to what we have for LST, where dispatcher takes the call, plug in what kind of call it is, and then they give them a drop-down menu, gives them exact questions to ask, and then that way they can relay it to the officers.
Do we, oh, this is different than that. I mean, I guess are we getting more expensive using Emergitech than we did with Spillman?
This is an Emergitech. This is Pro Q&A is the forced answers, so every dispatcher's asking the same questions.
Wait.
Hold on 1 second. It says Emergitech, but it's Priority Dispatch instead of Emergitech.
Okay, we're on Priority Dispatch, because there's a Pro Q&A here.
Right.
That's the next one.
Okay. Well, there's 2 things. One is related to Emergitech. The other is from Priority Dispatch. So we've tried it now for getting close to a year, maybe 8 months, with the medical dispatch, because we thought that was the most critical. And it's worked so well, having all the dispatchers do the same thing in the same order, that we are now looking at implementing the same thing for police. So it's a $44,000 one-time fee, then there's an annual fee thereafter. And then the second thing you're gonna talk about, the next one on the agenda, is the interface for Emergitech to take the data in their system and write the interface so that the 2 work with one another. We had to do the same thing with the medical. So because the vendor is not Emergitech, you have to pay Emergitech to write the interface so they work together with one another.
Now, is there an annual fee on that one?
Once they write the interface, it's a one-time thing, but there's an annual fee for the software licensing and programming.
Do you know what, for that, okay, do you know what the priority dispatch annual fee would be for the maintenance of that?
7,000?
At 7,000 a year?
For some reason, it sticks in
I don't see that on here.
I didn't see it.
Do you know, if that is it like 10%, is it like 4,400 then a year or something?
There's a license renewal on here that says 3,920.
Yeah, annual maintenance, ESP, 3,900, okay, so that's that one, but there's but for the other one then, for the interface, that's just a one-time fee, there's not an annual.
Right, because they're writing software so that the two will communicate with one another. So the ongoing cost is going to be the $39.20.
For the whole project.
Yes, sir.
And what is the ongoing cost, maybe you don't know, for the medical that we pay, is that the same amount?
Probably similar. Yes, sir.
And Mary, you said this is a program that each dispatcher asks the same questions. What kind of benefits have LST experienced with this program? Do you have any examples of?
Well, how it used to be was each dispatcher, would ask, what's your emergency, and kind of wing it with their questions. No disrespect, I mean, they did a great job. They didn't have something like this available. What this does is, person calls, they get their address, in case they get disconnected, what the nature of the call is, and then if it's chest pains, it opens up a block of chest pains. Is he breathing? If he's not breathing, it opens up another block. So depending on yes or no to their questions, it just keeps leading them through. So with the police call, it would be, where's your emergency? Can you, whatever the next question is, what's going on or whatever. If it's a person with a gun, boom, another window with a gun. If it's a police call with medical issues, then the medical will pop up in addition to the police, and they just keep working their way through it. Now, I was concerned, you get all these questions, or, how long is it taking to get somebody going there? And the average time from answering the phone to dispatch in our pro Q&A meetings, we're having monthly reviews. We just moved them to quarterly. Paul is the council rep, myself, the head of LST, a trustee from each of the townships, the chief, and Lieutenant Burke Bickler. So the steering committee has been reviewing these, and from answering the phone to dispatching units is about a minute, which is not insurmountable.
They had one that the dispatch was 21 seconds. I answered those questions.
Right. So
And
they're more comfortable with them. You're doing an excellent job with them, and in my opinion, with the medical, we heard from Mr. Durham upstairs. We're saving lives as a result, because we're getting the pertinent information. We're getting officers en route. We're getting LST en route, and the times that we're seeing are pretty unusual.
The one benefit that we didn't think we were going to get that's coming out is there's fewer calls going out, lights and sirens that don't have to be. And the added benefit to that is fewer sirens going up and down Washington Street. The residents get a little more peaceful time, and you reduce the chances of accidents at intersections and things like that. Right, and you're sending somebody off on a regular pace, and they're still getting the service, but appropriate. So, and this tool walks you through so that you don't overreact or over-dispatch or under-dispatch too, where you get the right questions, where somebody, I'm having chest pains, but I'm feeling okay, so you send it without lights and sirens, and they're having a real heart attack. It keeps everything focused. And then during, one example they had during the storms that we had 2 weeks ago, there were 2 heart attack cases coming in, and you could hear when they reviewed them, you could hear all the noise going on in the background, and the dispatcher was doing it. Was very metered, very purposeful, very focused on getting the right information. And so as long as they do that, this is a true benefit to the entire community, and it can only help by having the police officers using the same.
Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. The next one, it's a PROQA, Priority Dispatch for Police, with Emergency Act 14114, kind of the same thing we just talked about with the programming and converting it over. Anybody have questions on that?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 14115, 2013 financial audit contract modification with Ray and Associates. Keith?
What happened here is we had two major federal programs, and to define that without taking too much of your time, the federal government requires on the audits that when their money is being spent, it's audited to federal standards. It's called the Yellow Book. Because we had two programs that were over the threshold for what they consider a major program, the auditors had to do significantly expanded procedures because they had to audit both of them as major programs. They were the Brownfield Grant and the CDBG.
Move to approve
With?
the emergency clause.
Second with the emergency clause.
I do have one question. Is this something we should start planning for in the future every year? Because
The Brownfield is a time-limited thing. I don't think that's going to go on forever, so no, I don't think so right now. But,
CDBG, we go through that.
yeah, but it's normally the only major program. Now, sometimes the FAA might be with the airport if you have something come in the same year, but this is the first time we've had it.
Last year was the airport.
But we didn't have two last year, we had one.
Okay.
This year, both of them tripped over it, so that's unusual.
Any other discussion? All in favor with the emergency clause?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 14116, RFPs for case management software for the muni court. Nancy?
This is a request that I've been putting off for 3 years. I've come to the budget hearings and said, I'm gonna have to pull the trigger eventually, and we can't go without upgrading our software, redoing it. It doesn't meet what the judge needs, it doesn't meet what probation needs, it doesn't meet what my clerk's office needs. We just.
Is it a totally different software program?
It probably will be a totally different one, yes, because the current company cannot provide what we need.
So how's that, is it gonna be, does this cost, I guess, does it include the training and all that?
It
For
would
each of
include everything,
each of the
yes.
clerks and
I do not have the money in my budget, as I told you, for 3 years.
the time? Well, there is a computer,
Technology budget.
no, I mean, the court has their computer fund too, and then, I don't know how much money's in there. That's used for computers now, that does not necessarily mean in my mind, it's just for the judges' computers, it means for all the computers related to the court. Does anybody have a different view of that?
So how much money's in that account?
100-some thousand, I think.
Well, yeah, I didn't anticipate this question.
I didn't anticipate it.
I know the wording is that the judge says what can come out of there. If he's agreeable to it, then I think.
Well,
but-
did you ask him? No, probably not.
Of course I have.
And what did he say? No?
He'll work with me. I don't think he'll provide all of the money.
Well, I guess we should check on that to see.
He will be providing, because it's going to
Right,
benefit
right.
his staff also.
Right. I guess we have to ask the question on that when the time comes, but, I think the question is you have to go forward with the RFP and then figure out
What does it cost us later?
and talk to the judge about that.
The RFP doesn't cover the money at all, because
I
when
know.
we get the thing, we'll have the money, then we'll have to figure out where we're going.
That's right, but I mean, just looking ahead, looking ahead here a little bit.
I'm just curious, do we have any idea what it might cost?
All the companies, there are only about 7 companies in the country that provide case management. They'll all range from 300 to 500,000.
It's a lot of money.
And that's the same figure I've probably given you the last 3 years.
So I guess we do the RFP, then when we go through the budgeting, we're gonna have to do some soul searching. Because where that's coming from is the general fund, which has no money. So
Don't build the court.
the question is,
They're never going to afford to build the court.
we have a great system to go. So the
That's
question,
coming up, Bill.
the question would be, we have to look at that and see, maybe it is the computer technology fund, maybe it is the court's computer technology fund, a combination of both, or some other money from somewhere else. That's something that we could thought about, so. Give you plenty of time to think about it. Is it?
Second.
So let's see what it comes back at, then we can make a determination of what we're gonna do about it. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next one is 14117, Economic Development, TREX Transfer Form. Ms. Rice.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. We've been working with Whitney Harris, who is looking to purchase the 221 South Court building, which is former Gramercy Gallery. And she would like to establish a wine bar / retail store. The city is out of D1 and D2 liquor permits as verified through the Department of Commerce. She has located somebody in Mahoning County that wants to sell her a D1, D2, D3 liquor permit and have it transferred to the city. The state does allow for the transfer as long as the city, the mayor, the council agree to it and consider it an economic development project. So in your packets, you saw the form that she completed and signed. And so what we're asking here is for council to authorize the mayor to assign that. She did send me an update today about the building. She received a signed purchase agreement and has been sent off to the bank. So we can maybe make it subject to the deal closing or something like that and law director's review. But from my perspective as economic development, she would be acquiring a building that's been vacant for over a year and bringing an amenity that's been talked about quite a bit through the different economic development committees, Main Street, sort of one of those amenities that we don't have. And I think in the packet on her application, she had put her investment amount in 350, yeah, and then 5 new jobs, and then obviously, you know, all the interior furnishings and stuff. So
Questions?
yes, there we go.
So the 350 is just the purchase of the property?
I think it's the purchase of the property and then her buying the furniture and inventory and all of that.
So the 350 is,
Because the building is $275, so the 350 is probably includes her furniture, fixtures, equipment,
so
things that.
$75,000 is gonna redo that building?
I don't know that she's going to change a whole lot in it. She likes it the way that it is. I think it's more about getting the furniture.
What do you have to have if you're a wine bar? I mean, what do you have to have as far as, like, bathrooms?
Yeah, she'll have to put bathrooms in for that.
Because there are no bathrooms.
Yeah, so renovations, yeah.
$75,000.
Well, I would hope that she would have done her homework on the cost of the renovations.
So
And
what-
we don't really know what the purchase price of the building
I was
is.
just gonna say
She's
that.
negotiating that separately, so that's her estimated cost of the purchase plus the renovations and her furniture and equipment.
So if you approve this, and she puts in the wine bar, what is the retail store? What is the retail store component? Why is that included?
Well, you can go in there and then try a bottle of wine. Maybe you have a bottle while you're there, and she'll have like a light menu of tapas. And then if you like that wine and then you want to buy it, then you can purchase it and take it with you.
So that makes it a retail store, because you can buy the wine.
So if it's closed container, it's not illegal.
I think you're correct. I would make, if we do pass it, contingent upon her acquiring the property. Otherwise,
Just looking
if you
very
make the
good.
transfer, she can go somewhere else. I think the location here is kind of key for us, at least downtown.
I agree.
And
It's in
then,
alignment with our goals for the downtown strategic plan in making our Main Street historic entertainment district, so.
and then, where would the forms or the application, Mr. Huber would have to look over to confirm that they're, I can't imagine there's anything tricky in them, but we probably should look them over.
It's a State Department of Liquor form, and it actually states that the buyer and prospective permit holder gives a name and the address, and it lists 221 South Court specifically. So to take that somewhere else would require a different form and us to reapprove it. It's not like she can just change her mind and go somewhere.
And that's why I asked her to complete the form with all that information and sign it so that all of you could see her commitment to that property. And then she also emailed me today she's been keeping me up to date with where she's at with her purchase agreement, not necessarily the cost, but just that, you know, they're negotiating it, that that's the location, because she looked at 2 other locations on the square, and she chose this location.
Well, our approval, I think, reflected in the approval in the ordinance would be the address of this property, just so that she can't change another one, use a technicality to, a loophole to say, well, we approved it, but we didn't have the address in
Is that something we need in order? It's,
I guess I don't know. It's a good
mayor or
question.
Because
council's
we're doing this
signature.
more out of transparency
Oh,
for
all
the
right.
council.
Okay.
It authorizes me to sign it, or whoever signs on behalf of the city, but we didn't want to just run it through board of control
gotcha.
without you all weighing in and telling us if you're okay.
Yeah, I think we're, I think everybody's shaking their head was okay with that location. That sounds like a good idea to go there.
Or booze.
It could also be, according to the form, it says the mayor, legislative office holder, or law director.
Oh,
Nobody else but the mayor can sign on behalf of the city. So
Right,
that's-
so that's how we asked them to do it that way.
So is a liquor permit for wine, just for wine?
Well, I was kind of wondering that because
Because I don't
it says,
know.
But the D1, D2, D3, they're all different.
right, and that includes
Sale.
liquor. So is she planning to eventually put liquor in as well?
Which one, D1, D2, or D3?
D3 is everything.
D3 is everything.
D1, I believe, is wine, D2 is beer.
D3 is
She told you that.
liquor?
She has D1 and D2.
Correct, yeah.
Right.
The D3
Oh, now see-
allows her to stay open till 1 o'clock in the morning, and she's really not interested in renewing that, but the guy that she's buying the permits from, it's a package deal. This guy's out of Mahoning County, so she's really only interested in the D1 and the D2.
But she'll get the D3.
Right.
She will, but she will not
So it could
renew
just be a bar.
But D3 is to stay open later.
Okay.
A bar that sells wine, or beer, I guess, right? Could be.
Well, D1 says beer only for on-premises consumption or in original sealed containers for carryout only until 1 a.m. And the D2 says wine and mixed beverages for on-premises consumption or in original sealed containers for carryout only until 1 a.m. That's what it says under the descriptions off the Department of Commerce website.
What?
It could be a bar, but is that bad?
It's not up to me to say
I mean, I
what
don't
you
know.
think is bad.
Doesn't benefit you.
Well, you get people to come downtown, I guess, is the question. Whether, what they do after those hours downtown is another question. Anybody have any concerns, questions?
I think it'll be an addition to the community, Green Square area.
No comments
Not
from
sure.
the gallery.
All right, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
So we take it to council, or just go from this.
You okay?
I'm okay.
All right. 14-118, collective bargaining agreements for patrol officers and sergeants. Mayor.
Sir.
Sergeant.
What discuss?
We believe we've resolved both of the contracts. In your packets is what's been tentatively agreed to by the union, subject to council's approval, which is 2% wages across the board, no increase for the, no shift, or no rank differential for the sergeants, so they would get 2% each year as well. Raising the insurance payment effective August 1st. We're required under the Federal Health Care Act to give a 60-day notice of plan design changes. That's why we're in a hurry to take it to Finance Night Council tonight and pass it with the emergency clause, because otherwise we couldn't change the plan design until September 1st because of the 60-day notice. So what the premium contribution will go from the current 8% to 12%. If they don't take part in the wellness program by September 1st and do health risk assessment, then it'll be an additional 4%. So 16% instead of 8%, or 12% instead of 8%. Keith calculated that out for us, and using the example that eventually it'll be all city employees, that's a savings under the current differential that they're paying of nearly $100,000 a year. So looking at those costs, and the only other stipulation was the sick time buyout. It was previously, prior contracts, 45 8-hour days, which is 360 hours. They asked to increase that to 400 hours. And it's only unused sick time, and it's still calculated at 37.5%. So it's not like they get an automatic 400. They have to have whatever that number is times 37.5 has to equal 400, or they get whatever's left. There's also some plan design changes, increasing the deductibles, out-of-pocket maximums, co-pays, office co-pays, and prescription co-pays. I did ask Mr. Delino, our labor counsel, just so you would have it for consideration. If we had gone to arbitration, what would the normal fee for something like that be? He estimated the arbitrator would be $1,800 to $2,000, and the attorney's fees to go through the hearing and all the preparation for those processes would be about another $3,000. So we're saving $4,800 to $5,000 by agreeing to the terms, if you are.
And there was one other change with emergency room thing, did you say that?
I'm sorry, yeah, there's a $100 copay for an emergency room, but I think there's some provision that if you're admitted, then they waive that. But I think that's pretty typical.
So mainly go to the urgent care centers rather than...
Right.
Correct.
We would actually prefer they go to the urgent care, and they, I don't know if they raised that in the final one. Let me look at it real quick. There was some talk of whether to raise that or not raise that, because we want the people to go to the urgent care. It's much less of a cost to us if they do go to the urgent care. And let me just see what we did with that. Yeah, it looks like we didn't change the urgent care.
Okay. I know we've been talking about this for a while, negotiations.
One more thing. That, to do all of that, the only way they'll agree to that is if we maintain the 10-hour shifts. I forgot to put it in.
So that's been discussed through executive sessions for, 3 months, 4 months? Oh. Well, it's just, we're out now because we got this contract. So the question would be, if everybody's agreeable to that, because the next, of course, item is to do to non-union employees to be consistent, because we usually follow what the police contract has, and then we, of course, implement that throughout the city. So, questions?
The only other two unions are the dispatch. They're trying to get that one still resolved. We expected May, it was just not enough timing to get it done before these meetings. And then the other is the Teamsters. Their contract it's always 1 year behind the police, so their contract is through the end of this year, 12/31/14. So we can't change anything in their contract until next year. But we expect to make those same changes.
I have to abstain.
And I know I came in late, but I'm well aware of what's going on. These two have been talking about this for many months.
Sergeant patrol contract. It should be 118, 14/118.
That's all right. All right, so is there a motion?
Move to approve
with,
the emergency clause.
Second with the emergency clause.
any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So 14-119.
Aye.
Oh, abstentions, I'm sorry. One abstention. 14-119, pay scale for non-union and healthcare adjustment. As we just talked about with the collective bargaining agreements, patrol officers and sergeants, the same changes made to the non-union employees throughout the city. Which, when doing this, gives you a savings per year of about $100,000 for the city in the healthcare costs. Because our healthcare costs per year currently is around
2.5.
2.4, was it? 2.4 million. So,
The rest of this request matches the 2% raise. Then the healthcare, as we talked about, the 12 and 16. And then the final one is to match from the contract. They increased the payout of sick time when an employee leaves.
so to be consistent for everyone. Anybody have any questions on it? It's going to be effective at the same time, August 1st. And the notice will be a little easier.
But the 2% is retro to January 1st, just like the
Right.
contract notice did.
So the raise will get a lump sum payment. That'll be August, the first paycheck in August then?
Well, what we'll do is when this becomes effective, we'll do the raise, and then we'll figure out the difference, because you don't want to keep
Right.
carrying the difference until you're done. You don't want to calculate the difference until you're done.
So the healthcare is really the only thing that's going to be effective August 1st. The raises probably occur before that.
Raises probably will. Since they're retro to January 1st, as soon as this is in place,
You can do it.
we'll start doing that. The first thing will be to do it on the current paychecks, and then we'll go back and calculate what the difference is.
Mhm.
Just so the council knows, we did ask the labor attorney, is there any way we can tie the two? We give the retro, and we retro the healthcare or the other. And his advice to us is he's never seen a fact finder or an arbitrator do it both ways like that. He says inevitably they always give the raises back to the contract start date, but anything that's going to take money away from them, they always start it either then or in the future. So we did ask the question, just so you know.
Okay.
Move to approve with the emergency clause.
Second?
All in favor with the emergency clause?
Aye.
Opposed? No abstentions? 14-120, resolution of necessity for renewal of a 2.2 mil tax levy.
This is the next step in the process of putting a renewal on for our EMS levy. It'll be this November. If you remember, a few weeks ago, we passed the request to ask the county auditor to certify the amount. We got that back. Now we can move forward towards putting this on the ballot in November. The important thing to point out for our constituents is that by doing a renewal, we preserve the homestead exemption and the rollback, which are not, are being phased out by the state, so those don't apply to new levies. Renewal, they will apply to.
What's the certification of the amount? Is it consistent from what was before? Did it go up or down?
It's about what it has been. It's $1,028,700. Yeah, $1,028,700. It's been a little light the last couple of years with the real estate issues. This is recovering a little bit.
Questions?
Mr. President? I have to abstain.
Oh, sorry to hear that. Anybody else have to abstain? Abstain on this? All right.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstention?
Aye.
Last item, 14-121, qualification statement for design services for the municipal courthouse. Nino Pacoli?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is actually Patrick and myself. As you know, there have been numerous meetings and discussions with regard to the courthouse project. So this request reflects the QBS, which is the qualification-based selection process, the next step in moving forward. Patrick's well versed with the RFQ, and that first, in parentheses, should be RFQ. That was just a typo that we had, so if you can correct that in the first paragraph. I think it says
FRQ should be RFQ.
And the RFQs, as everybody understands, is trying to figure out and get some qualifications from the architects that will be gone through a stringent process through the engineering department to make a determination of what one qualifies, or what few qualify for the short list, and then make a determination of the ultimate selection of the architect through the request of proposals at that point.
We negotiate that.
Have to negotiate it.
And this RFQ will be site-specific.
Site-specific.
Correct, yeah.
Questions, concerns? Anything?
I'm going to be voting no because I'm not in favor of this extension or this location of the Munich Court. So I was hoping we could do something a little cheaper. Some say we can't, but on the existing site. But just to let you know.
Anybody else?
Patrick, when you send this out, is this specific to the dollar amount that we intend to spend?
Now, this is just asking interested architects to submit their qualifications.
So it has nothing to do with the dollar amount?
We put that as information only. It's a publicly advertised advertisement.
I think it's a range.
It is a range.
It's a
not
range, and it's just to let architects know, hopefully some qualified ones with a lot of good experience submit to us. There's no dollars attached to this in terms of council funding anything. It's just starting the process to select an architect. We will have to come back at a later point after we negotiate their contract.
Is this the same process that the state uses?
Yeah, it's per state law. You have to follow.
They use the exact same process?
Well, yeah, it's dictated in the ORC, how you have to go through the qualifications-based selection process for any project where the design fees are going to be above a certain amount.
Councilman Simpson served with us several times as we went through the RFQ process with engineering.
You enjoy that?
It was actually interesting.
You may want to discuss a little bit who is going to be reviewing these. Administratively, I think Dino and I.
I volunteer to help you.
Anybody want to do it besides Denny? Denny enjoys it. Nobody's volunteering. Where's your guy? Who's your guy?
Thank you.
No.
All right, anything else?
Move to approve?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Passes 5-2. All right.
No one's voted against it.
Bill? Anything else come before finance? Any problems, concerns about the city? No?
I have a question.
Oh, okay, question.
Keith, what's the procedure for, I thought that we had put in play, there was some procedure to deal with foreclosed homes. That we would be notified about, through the bank, remember when we went through this a few years back when there was a lot of foreclosed homes and we didn't know they were foreclosed or who got them? I thought that there had been a procedure put in place that was that the banks would notify us?
I do recall us passing something, but it's not administered through finance. I think the planning department gets notification of all community development.
Okay, because there is a foreclosed, I called today about a home that I notified the city about when it was abandoned, the day after it was abandoned, asked to be kept informed of what went on, that it's empty. It's foreclosed, and apparently it's been turned over to the bank now. It has a lot of problems, big giant holes in the roof, grass a couple feet high.
Is that on Gilbert?
No, it's on South Court Street.
What's the address?
I don't know, I gave it to the planning department, but it's been in process, I guess, a couple of months, and I've heard nothing back. And I thought that, we were not informed.
Well, no, I think the ordinance dealt with if the bank takes it over and fails to maintain it, there could be criminal activity in the process.
Okay, so in this case, the bank took it over, and it's got giant hole in the roof. grass isn't mowed, it looks like it has a lot of serious problems, but the bank's taking it over. So what kicks in that process of going after the bank?
High grass.
I think there's a notification if it's not taken care of, and then there could be, I think it's a misdemeanor by the processor at the bank.
Yeah, but what the banks have been doing to avoid this problem is not taking possessory title.
What-
They
oh, yeah,
leave it
we
in
don't
no
know.
man's land.
Do you know if they took title of the property?
Well, I called today because I called about the grass, you know, because there's folks that live on either side, and so when you have grass, you know, that's this high, and it's a house that's really, the driveway's in the street. I mean, it's one of those driveways that, because we don't have, if you have a driveway that's an asphalt driveway that's been worn out for 40 years, this, you know, when we have rain, the driveway is in the street, and because we had a lot of rain, that driveway is literally in the street. And they have neighbors, you know, so I called, and they said it had been transferred to the bank, ownership had been transferred to the bank. And good luck.
Well, if it has been, I mean, Mr. Broccoli has.
I guess I'd ask, did the auditor's office have the, it's been transferred as of recent? Because
I think it was transferred just recently.
Greg's right, what happens, we send the high grass letter, go to the address of record by ordinance, and the banks do not put it in their name, so we send a letter to the registered owner by the auditor site, which could be 2 people removed, and then we'll get a call from that party saying, I don't own it, we left, the bank owns it, but it's still in that party's name, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think this is in the bank's name, though. This house was literally like walked away from, abandoned.
The mowing we could take care of, I can.
Yeah, I mean, I know you guys can take it to the mowing, but what's the I guess I'm asking, what's the procedure?
The process is, once the bank takes it over, they send them, in my opinion, they become responsible for the property then. If you kick these people out, now you own it until you do something with it. But through the planning department, it's much longer timelines. I can't tell you off the top of my head, but it might be 30 days, 45 days, and if they don't do it by then we can file a complaint in court, bring them in, and the court can either order them to fix it, give them more time if they have some plan or whatever, but that's what starts the whole process. But it's not like the high grass where within 10 days or 15 days, or like an unlicensed vehicle, you know, 10 days they have to remove it or we remove it. In these cases, by code, they're given more time to respond to it. So I don't know here tonight, when we talk to Jonathan, I'm sure they can tell us, where we can check with Justin and see what stage of the process it's
And
in.
Bill, I thought for some reason, once the foreclosure proceedings started, I thought that's when we were supposed to get notified. I might be wrong.
I thought what we had discussed was that these things occurred, and then I know that we were at a number of those neighborhood meetings, and people had brought up that there's this house and this house and this house, but, and we don't know it. And I thought that somewhere, was it from the auditor, it was from someplace, that we were, the city, was supposed to be notified if there was a foreclosed house.
I think the banks.
Whoever took possession of it, I think the ordinance said whoever took possession was required by law to notify us so that we knew who was responsible for maintenance, that kind of stuff.
But no time limit on that, no.
I think there was a time limit, once, I think it was 30 days from time of possession or something like that.
I've got to look at the ordinance, I don't remember the ordinance. Kathy, can you?
Actually, I don't even think it was 30 days.
Well, and the other thing is if you create a dangerous situation, I mean, for example, and this is just an example because I know which one it is. I mean, if you have a giant hole in the roof that you can climb through, and the garage door is broken half down, I mean, it looks to me like under the building code, you can do something if there's a hazardous situation, a dangerous situation with a structure. I think it's in the building code under structure.
We're sure we could condemn it, but that doesn't.
Yeah, no, I mean the
fix it.
garage. I mean, if you have a building that's dangerous, like a garage, that looks like it could come down, or somebody could climb up and get hurt, then it ought to be the bank, whoever owns it, should be responsible for putting the roof, you know.
Well, some of the problem is the people who are, I think Mr. Huber's talking about, the bank doesn't own it, the individuals own it. They don't have any money, you don't have no recourse against anybody to do anything because.
And that's what the banks have been doing. They don't go in, I mean, I don't know who's telling you the bank owns it.
I called
In order to find that out,
I called the
I'd have to
number
find
on
the
the-
address, and
on
I'd have
the-
to go
Look up
track
online.
this down, but
I called the
usually
number on
the
the
banks
sign on the door.
won't own it. They have a mortgage, so they're gonna go through a court proceeding and sell it at sheriff's sale to see if they can get somebody in to become responsible for it. And typically, geez, in the last 3 years, the banks have been pretty careful to not own it because they don't want the responsibility for this stuff. So it's in limbo in the court system until it gets sold to sheriff's sale. Now, if they file a foreclosure proceeding, then the banks are supposed to notify us. I don't know if this is actually in the foreclosure proceeding or where it's at in the chain, because I don't even know what address this is.
Can you give me the address?
749 South Court.
I don't know, building department, you picked up the trash.
That's seven, I remember it
Yeah.
from memory, that's what I'm asking you. It's 749
Yeah.
South Court Street, I'll look it up right now.
Thanks.
Anything else? Hearing nothing, meeting adjourned.